Hi everyone, welcome to another week of Monday Night Lights podcast here. I'm Louis Schaefer, not alongside Tim Hoffmeister. His computer blew out again, so I'm going to attempt to carry the show by myself. Probably crash and burn, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. So we had a pretty busy week this week in sports. We're going to start with baseball. Obviously today, as I record on Sunday here, we had the Hall of Fame induction for baseball, which saw Craig Biggio get in with the Astros, Randy Johnson be inducted with the Diamondbacks, Pedro Martinez be inducted with the Red Sox, and John Smoltz be inducted with the Braves. Personally, I think all four of these guys deserve it. I still wish that Piazza was in, but hopefully next year. I think the Hall of Fame needs to get back to the trend of not everyone gets in on the first ballot. Sometimes you have to wait and hope that they get in down the line. I think next year is Griffey. So next year is looking like the year for the Mets. But for those four guys, there's nobody more deserving. Probably one of the more dominant pitchers in history aside from Nolan Ryan and Johnson. The top Latin pitcher probably ever in Pedro. Smoltz, who was a key part of that pitching staff in Atlanta with Maddox and Glavine, and Maddox is in, Glavine will. It's a matter of, you got to have all three of them in. And then Biggio, of course, waiting a couple of years to get his call. Personally, I think that all these guys deserve it. Well deserved. They're Hall of Famers. You knew it was going to happen with these guys. It was a matter of time. So much deserved to these players of the past. But from the players of the past, we move on to the players of the present and future. With the MLB trade deadline coming up Friday at about 4 o'clock, I believe I saw. There's already some buzz going on in the trade market. The first one being the big ticket move so far that came through about Sunday afternoon, that the Reds had traded their ace, Johnny Cueto, over to the Kansas City Royals for 3 pitching prospects, the biggest one of which being Brandon Finnegan, who was the pitcher that came right away last season, helped the Royals out in the bullpen, and was the only guy to ever pitch in the College World Series as well as the MLB World Series in the same year. And I think this trade, it benefits both sides, absolutely. Cincinnati gets pitching that they needed for down the line. Cincinnati's not going to compete right now. The Cardinals are too good, Pittsburgh's too good, Chicago's on the uptick. You want to look to compete with Chicago in 5 years. I think that's got to be their bar. You have Votto. That's going to be tough to move that contract. Phillips, another tough contract to move, but he plays a position of need. So if he's hitting, it could be very easy to deal him. Obviously, Frazier is younger, but he's not young enough to be a part of a team that's 5 years away. So he could be a piece. And obviously the big one is Chapman, but I'll get to that later. I think this Cueto deal benefits both teams. Kansas City gets a front-line starter. They rolled with Shields last year, but, he wasn't on his game at all by any stretch of the imagination. He showed up, pitched, was good in the regular playoffs, the AL Division Series and the AL Championship Series, but he stunk up the joint in the World Series when they needed him. He didn't face Bumgarner, and they needed wins, and he couldn't pull them off. So it's a big upgrade over what they had last year in James Shields, and they get a frontline guy in Cueto who you can give the ball to in a must-win situation and not have any second thoughts about it. Personally, for my fantasy team, also, I appreciate this going from Cincinnati to Kansas City, where the park is much bigger, by far. And then from a Reds standpoint, I also like the deal. You get, not sure the names on the other two, but you get 2 pitchers. But the big one is Finnegan. Finnegan was good last year coming right out of college. And they sent him down to develop his pitches, and I understand that. But Kansas City, they deal their prospects eventually anyway in deals like this. This guy, there's not much of a book on him. He caught MLB guys by surprise, and he's made a name for himself, but, we have no indication that he's a long-term option for a team, and Kansas City just dealt him for Johnny Cueto. Very similar to Will Myers, where Kansas City knew when to pull the plug on him, sent him to Tampa for Shields, and then he hurts his wrist and isn't the power prospect that KC had hoped for and that Tampa had hoped for. So I like this deal from both sides. Kansas City gets a frontline starter they can hand the ball to and have confidence in. Yes, it's not Madison Bumgarner, but it is something. And from a Red standpoint, you get young pitching, Finnegan being the centerpiece, and he's a guy that, can be the centerpiece of a rotation if he pitches like he did in the postseason. From Johnny Cueto, though, we go to another pitcher that has trade rumors all over his name, mostly because of the team he plays for. But we'll start on the good side first. Cole Hamels, Tim will be happy that I'm mentioning this when I'm doing it myself and not just going straight over it. Cole Hamels pitched a no-hitter in Chicago. For the first time in 50 years, the Cubs had been no-hit in Wrigley Field. Cole Hamels did it. There's not much to say. I mean, he's an ace. Don't get me wrong, he is an ace in every sense of the word. I tend to undervalue him because the Mets probably have 3 pitchers better than him. In Harvey, DeGrom, and when he's healthy, Wheeler. But he's a bona fide ace. No question about it. And you look at this last couple days, and the trade rumors surrounding his name are 10 times of what they were prior to the start. It had just been assumed, the Cubs will eventually get him. To now there's the Cubs, the Yankees, the Red Sox are back in, the Blue Jays, the Dodgers, the Astros, you name it, they're in on Hamels now because he threw this no-hitter. And, the fact that he was, I think it speaks volumes for the kind of player he is to be able to go out there, throw a no-hitter, with his name being thrown in every trade rumor possible. When you start hearing your name for Puig with the Dodgers, something's up. I mean, no question about it. And he just tuned it all out and pitched a no-hitter. And for that, I mean, it's impressive. It rarely happens, let alone to a pitcher that is getting traded. And he just helped himself because now he's going to end up in a big market where they're going to win right away. And it's not pick him up. And by the third year of his contract, when he's in his contract year, we'll be good. He's going to go to Los Angeles or Toronto or the Yankees or Boston, and he's going to be a factor in October again, which I think that's what the Phillies fans want too. You ask around, if he gets traded, we want to see him do well. And I think that's what we're going to see now. This no-hitter has helped him out tremendously. And now instead of being dealt to Oakland just because he has years left on his deal, we're going to see him go to a contender and contend right away. And maybe even see his 2008 form when he won the World Series MVP. So it should be interesting to see what he does as far as that's concerned, and where he lands. Personally, I don't think he'll be on the team Tuesday, which is scheduled to be his next start. Either that or they'll skip his start. Because I think if you're the Phillies, you got to sell on this no-hitter. You don't just not capitalize on her because he can go out and be fatigued from pitching 120-some pitches in this no-hitter and not pitch well, and then you're losing the prospects that you were going to get because he was coming off a no-hitter. And, I think if the Phillies are smart, and I tweeted about this when he threw the no-hitter, if the Phillies are smart, he is not playing another game for Philly. No question about it in my mind. Because you have to sell in this no-hitter and hope that he can continue on his way and get you a big prospect haul in return, which is what the Phillies have been looking for. So from the Phillies now, we'll switch over to my team, the New York Mets. We'll start with the trade that went down, and it was two very low-level pitchers from the Mets. They're with the long-term rotation plans. There was no spot for them for Juan Uribe and Kelly Johnson from Atlanta. And it gave the Mets insurance to be able to have a third baseman. That was their big issue. Ever since Wright got hurt in April, they haven't had a third baseman. They've platooned Murphy there. They've platooned Tejada there. They've platooned... The only two guys that haven't, besides the pitchers, are Flores and Duda. I'm pretty sure everybody else has tried their hand at third base at some point or another this year, because it's a big gap to fill and it's big shoes to fill when David Wright goes down. Now the Mets pull this trade. They get two guys that could play third base, in Juan Uribe, who's a natural third baseman, and Kelly Johnson, who could play everything. You get Kelly Johnson's bat off the bench, which was huge. No doubt about it. Now you can turn to Kelly Johnson in a pinch hit situation instead of Eric Campbell. And you get Juan Uribe, who's played well so far. I mean, he's already paying dividends. Sunday afternoon, he hit a walk-off off the Dodgers. So he's already paying dividends. And it looks like a smart move. They gave up nothing to get them. And we have a guy that can play third and hit. And I think that's what the Mets need. They needed some experience, some veteran experience that can hit. And they tried to get that in Granderson and Kadire, and it didn't pan out. And now we have to try our hand at Uribe and Johnson. So I think that worked out well for the Mets. While we're on the Mets, though, and we're talking about present players, we'll also talk about future players down the line, who's also currently a present player. A guy who I am very, very high on, Michael Conforto, was called up from Double-A Binghamton this week to play left field in place of the injured Michael Kadire after he went on the DL. Conforto has been tearing it up in the minor leagues this year. Put on a show at the what do they call it now? The World versus USA game, Futures game. He put on a show there and showed that he can play. I mean, he's out of college, so he's 20-something, and he can play and he can hit. And then Saturday night he goes 4 for 4. It was a spot start because Greinke didn't pitch, but he still went 4 for 4. So he looks like he could be a stud in the outfield, so we don't have to sign some 35-year-old has-been like we did with Granderson and Kadire. And like I said, it's all hoping for the best, whether it's Uribe, Conforto, even if David Wright comes back, we're hoping for the best. No question about it. As a Mets fan, it's stressful. It's definitely stressful because we're in it. We're only a couple games out of first. And they need to make a move badly. So we're kind of just all sitting on the edge of our seats hoping that Sandy Alderson does something. So Sandy Alderson, if you're listening to this, make a move. Please. While we're still on baseball, though, one quick thing. And while we're on the Mets, the team that they actually split with, a 4-game series. The Mets took the Saturday and Sunday game, while the Dodgers took the Thursday and Friday game. But however, the most notable thing might have happened Sunday afternoon. Zach Greinke took the hill after taking a day off for a spot start with his wife expecting. Came out, pitched well, and then in the third inning, something he hasn't done in several games now, gave up a run. The Mets, of all teams, got to Zack Greinke, and after 45 and 2/3 innings, his scoreless streak was snapped. This says nothing about the Mets. The guy was, pitching on an extra day rest. He was probably rusty. The Mets got to him. But I don't think there's any reason why they should hang their heads. He's an ace. They have a scary staff. And if they had Hamels, forget it. But Greinke's been dominant. He gave up a run. But I just wanted to throw that in there because it was the Mets that did it. If it was any other team, I wouldn't have thrown that in there. So now we'll move on to the NBA. And a couple moves. Nothing too major this week. Like I said, pretty slow week other than baseball. I mean, everything pretty much gets slow around this time. Mostly because it's hot and it's baseball season. So people don't want to be in their office watching scouting reports and film. They want to enjoy the summer for a little bit. Couple trades to talk about. Not too long because they're not major deals, but the first one being a Cavs and Blazers trade that sent the contracts of Brandon Haywood and Mike Miller to Portland. Just to get the Cavs some salary cap relief, some trade exceptions, so they can go sign a guy, and not have a count against the tax. That's all it was. They're clearing room for Tristan Thompson, and, just to get him back in the fold. I think Mike Miller might return because Haywood's contract is non-guaranteed. Miller's is $2.85 million this year, and they could probably work out a buyout. I think he might come back to Cleveland. He likes playing with LeBron. He did it in Miami, yada, yada, yada. I think he'll be back. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see if Portland even buys him out. They might say, well, we lost enough this year. Play, get regular minutes. Sorry, guys, for the occasional water break. I'm a little hoarse doing some around. So that was that trade. Again, like I said, nothing too groundbreaking. It's not like LeBron got dealt to Portland. They got rid of Haywood and Miller's contracts. Nothing huge. The other trade that helped out a team a bit, but I'm not quite sure how. Shabazz Napier of the Heat, formerly of UConn, got traded to the Orlando Magic. Now, at the time of this deal, I was like, okay, guard depth. Can never have enough guards, especially with the speed that they have to move at now. They get hurt, So I figured, why not keep the guard out there? But then I thought about it, and I realized, well, where does Shabazz Napier fit into this? And I looked up what they gave up for him. They gave up a second-round pick for him. Nothing huge. But this move, in all essence of the words, is guard depth. Orlando has already made it clear Elfrid Payton is the guy. He's shown signs of being a budding, very good point guard. And alongside Oladipo, they want to develop that. Shabazz Napier is literally just extra because they were able to pick him up for a second-round pick. A guy that went in the first round last year. So, good move for Orlando. And from a Miami standpoint, you clear a logjam at point guard between Dragic, Chalmers, Tyler Johnson. You clear the logjam, and you get rid of Napier, who you really only drafted to try to keep LeBron in town. And Orlando gets a quality guard. I mean, he's a good backup. I think that's where he's going to... That's why he might be good. He's going to be a quality backup player. He's not a starter, which is why even Mario Chalmers started over him in Miami until they got Dragic. He's not a fantastic player. He's going to be a good bench guy, I believe, and Orlando might find that niche with him of being on the bench. So then, now that we're done with NBA, And as I look at the time on the clock, I see that this is going to be a very short show for our standards. We move on to the NFL, which we didn't really get a chance to touch on last week because we ran too long. But to start off, one thing that happened a couple weeks ago that we haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet, Greg Hardy's suspension got reduced to 4 games. So instead of the original 10 that Dallas thought he was going to miss, it's only going to be 4. Obviously, this comes as we still wait on a decision about the Deflategate appeal. But we'll have some sort of clarity. I think, if anything, this provides a sample of Brady's not getting suspended now. We just knocked this guy's suspension down 6 games for beating a woman. And, Brady originally had 4. We're going to knock out his suspension completely for deflating. Might have known about deflating footballs. So I think this is a sign that Brady will be fine and he'll play week 1. But you never know with the NFL. They run by their own set of rules. But I think this might be a telltale sign. And as a Giants fan, I'm sure Tim, as an Eagle fan, can agree with it, is kind of hoping for that 10-game suspension to hold up. With him having signed with Dallas, and they got Randy Gregory in the 2nd round. They got DeMarcus Lawrence look better. Yeah, McLean suspended, but you get Sean Lee back. Brandon Carr's out there. Mo Claiborne, who is on and off again if he's good. Depends how he wakes up out of bed. Their defense is better. It's much better than it's been. And now, instead of him missing 10 games, he's missing 4. This makes the Dallas defense a whole lot scarier, especially for the Giants, who are a pass-first team. Gregory and Hardy have a niche for getting to the quarterback. And now they're together for longer, more than just 6 games at the end of the year, when Dallas could be out of it. He's back for week 5 now. So this is huge for Dallas to keep him in the lineup post-suspension and get him back earlier. So he's going to be a big deal in the Dallas defense now that he's only suspended 4 games. And while we're on big deals, we'll move on to 2 guys that are looking for some big deals and some big money. The first one of which being A.J. Green of the Cincinnati Bengals. A.J. Green obviously has requested a new deal, wants a new deal, wants to get paid, but he has said, my time will come. He doesn't want to go anywhere. Obviously, there's a situation with Dalton's contract of how much money they can fit, but he said his time will come. He wants to be in Cincinnati, but his time will come, and if his time coming means, some other team's offering me more than Dez Bryant got because I'm on the open market, then that's what it means. But he said he's not rushing it. His time will come. If Cincinnati brings him an offer that he can't refuse, use a Godfather quote there, if Cincinnati gives him an offer he can't confuse, he will take it. If not, he'll wait. He'll bet on himself, wait it out, and have probably another good year because he's A.J. Green. So he's willing to bet. It looks like he might be willing to bet on himself if Cincinnati can't get a deal done with him. And while we're on players, again, like I said, big deals and that want to bet on themselves and, stay with their team, the biggest one right now might be Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks. And it's an interesting situation. And I had said this just around the last, year or so. The issue is going to be that Super Bowl championship winning contenders are going to have 2nd, 3rd round drafted quarterbacks that turn out good. And we saw that with Seattle 2 years ago, and then Brady proved me wrong this year. Brady with that huge salary. But my whole point to saying that was, Luck is paid significantly more than Russell Wilson, who was drafted in that same draft. Because of that, Indianapolis can not sign let's say a guy like Jimmy Graham was traded for, but let's say a guy like Gronk hit the open market. Indianapolis would have a harder time offering him something with Luck's rookie deal on their books than Seattle would have with Wilson's rookie contract on their books. And and that's how you win Super Bowls. If you can build a team around a quarterback because he's not paid much. Now it bites Seattle in the ass because now they've traded for Jimmy Graham, who's a big contract. They've got Sherman, who's on a big deal, much deserved. A lot of their guys are on big contracts. And now Wilson wants his. Supposedly there's been an offer on the table now that will make him the third highest paid quarterback in the league. I'm not quite sure that he'll take that, but he will take something. I don't think he's a system QB that plays very, very well in the Seattle system. I don't see him having any reason to want to leave Seattle at this point because there's just no incentive to it. You leave a system that's working outstandingly for you. You're in your third year and you got a Super Bowl and you made a trip that you didn't win because you didn't give the ball to Marshawn. This is such a great system for Russell Wilson. I can't see him leaving it at all because I don't think any other team fits him as well. So I think the deal will get done. I think Seattle fans will get to rejoice. They got their quarterback under contract. And he'll definitely be paid. There's no question about it. Joe Flacco has that huge contract because he won one Super Bowl and made like a playoff run his rookie year. And Russell Wilson has a Super Bowl win and another Super Bowl run where he lost. And plus the run the first year of Russell Wilson. So I think he's going to get paid. He's going to be up there with the bad contract of Cutler. Now the issue is, Russell Wilson, prove that you're not a Cutler. So that's going to be what everyone's going to be looking at when he gets that contract. The lights are going to be on. That's what comes with the money. That's what comes with being the franchise QB. The lights are on, and Russell Wilson has to show it. So that'll wrap up our show for this week. It went pretty well, I must say. Hopefully we get Tim back next week. He's a lot better at setting up the topic, and then I can answer it. So hopefully we get him back this week. Hopefully he gets his computer situation fixed up. Couple Monday Night Lights related news. We are working on a Twitter page. So that way we can tweet about when the show's being released. Just tweet news. We won't tweet our individual opinions on the Twitter. You'll have to go to our individual Twitters at Schaefer500, SCHAEFER, and at Don'tHassle_Hoff to be able to see our personal opinions. But our Twitter page will break news when we get it. And you'll also get a tweet every time we release a video, so that way you guys have a link to follow it. So with that said, we're making some moves here at Monday Night Lights. We are in the works of contacting the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs to be able to get an interview with one of their players. But big things are coming here for Monday Night Lights. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned to be able to say that you were part of the original squad that rolled with us from the very beginning. And we promise not to, or at least try to not disappoint you. I know you guys probably hold high standards, but we'll try our best not to disappoint you. Alright, everyone. For Lewis Schaefer, that's not what Tim says. Sorry about that. I'm Lewis Schaefer. We'll see you right here, same time, same place, youtube.com, right here, next week. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video all over the entire internet. Have a good week, everyone. See you next week.